back to our podcast series, Governing the Future. I'm Rosy, a student and also the Youth Ambassador of Boston Global Forum. Today, we're joined by Dr. Thomas Patterson, Bradlee Professor of Government and the Professor at Harvard University, co-founder of Boston Global Forum, and a contributor of AIWS Government 24/7 initiative. He's also one of the most respected voices in political communication and media studies. We'll be exploring the role of AI in reshaping governance, truth, trust, and democratic engagement in a time when information and misinformation move faster than ever. So, good morning, Dr. Patterson.
How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good, Rosie. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today.
Sure.
Yeah, so shall we get started?
Sure.
Okay. So I'd like to begin with an optimistic note. AI has the potential to greatly improve public governance and communication, especially when it comes to strengthening democratic systems and repairing fractured trust. So one of the promises of the AIWS government model is increased transparency. What does true transparency look like in an AI-powered government, and how does that differ from today's political communication?
Well, I think true transparency means that we know, doesn't mean we know individually, but at least some regulatory body or oversight body has a really full understanding of a model that's being used, where there's a human interface, where they're interacting with us. We need to know if there's something about the way that model is constructed that somehow could be used in ways that would not serve our interests. I mean, I think the assumption is that when we engage with kind of any interface or model, that we're doing it voluntarily, and we're doing it because we think it's going to help us. If there's a hidden piece of that, a lack of transparency that can harm us or be used to our disadvantage, then you don't have true transparency.
Okay. So if transparency is a goal, then trust has to be the foundation. But many citizens, like nowadays, especially the younger ones, are deeply skeptical of institutions. So how can digital tools and AI rebuild trust between governments and the people they serve, and how?
Well, I think trust is a deeper issue than technology. I think it's more about how a political system operates, how responsive leaders are, not only in the political sphere, but in the private sector. Trust is earned or lost over time, right? Now, I think the way that AI can help is if you think about some of the applications of AI relating to government, for example, if we're talking about government trust. AI can be used to greatly improve government services. The better the services, the more that we feel like we're being recognized, that we're being sufficiently taken into account in government services, we're going to have more trust in government and in the institutions that are supplying the service. Some people also talk about using AI as a democratic tool, where basically you can have more ground-up democracy, because AI does allow for publics to communicate more effectively with those at the top. I think that's a little bit further down the road, to be able to really perfect that in a way where it actually fits into decisions. There's kind of nothing worse than asking people for their opinion, and then nothing happens that aligns with what they think. And what we know about public opinion is that oftentimes it's well informed, but oftentimes it's not. Sometimes we tend to oversimplify very complex policy issues, and we think they have simple answers. And we get frustrated when government doesn't respond in that way. So I think in terms of inputs from citizens, in terms of thinking about how they can influence policy, leadership, I think that's a little bit further down the road. But immediately, it can be used for improvements in service delivery. And that can really deepen trust in government. If we're being properly served in the many ways that government does serve us, education, health, welfare, you go down the list. If those improve, we'll feel it, we'll know it, there'll be more trust.
So it's really fascinating to know that AI has the ability to do such things. So assuming that AI helps strengthen that relationship, can AI also help citizens engage directly with public institutions, which means that it can enhance the flow of accurate and understandable communication between citizens and their government?
Well, I think so, but as I mentioned, I think that's a little bit further away. I think we have to figure out how to structure those interactions. I don't think it's as simple as a poll question. What would you like government to do? I think there needs to be kind of a really thoughtful, deliberative process by which publics engage with policymakers. That means, and deliberative means not simply a quick answer, but in fact, hearing the arguments, studying the situation, making an informed judgment. And that's not a simple poll question. That requires a more elaborate kind of process. If we can get there and get there in a way that gives people confidence and also something they want to engage, they may not want to spend their time in that way. Then I think we have a tool that really can shorten that distance and create trust.
Mm-hmm. So, and if people are getting more information and engaging more frequently, what reforms do we need in civic education or media literacy to prepare people, especially the young generation, to critically engage with AI-generated content?
That's a really good question, I think a perplexing one. We can do civic education, we can do media literacy. There's a pedagogy around each of those. The problem is, as the studies show, is that the effect doesn't last very long. So you can alert people to how to be media literate, and that may affect their behavior for 2 or 3 months, and then they go back to their old habits. So I think the real key here is what really should be the goal of education broadly, and that's to teach people to think critically. Media literacy, civic engagement, civic education, these are really exercises in critical thinking. And that, of course, involves kind of stepping back, looking at the evidence, weighing it. Now, you're going to have your own values. So you and I may reach different judgments, even if we have the same evidence from which we're working. But there is a process for informed judgment. And I think that's what you need. But informed judgment requires that people be critical thinkers, that they have the ability, essentially, to really step back, look at the evidence, weigh it, decide how it fits the situation, and then come to a choice. It's not a simple process. And critical thinking develops over time. I think it ought to be the goal of all of our educational efforts at every level.
So, speaking of young people, do you believe that young people can truly reshape democratic norms? And what gives you hope about youth-led civic innovation or digital activism?
Well, I think young people are always the hope of the future. They are the future. They tend to be more idealistic than older adults. All of that, that's all promising. What happens over time is they lose some of that idealism and they lose some of the enthusiasm, and so it kind of just disappears in the wind, generation after generation. I think the challenge really is to figure out in the digital age how to keep people engaged. Now social media have the ability to engage us. Now, on the other hand, we tend not to use it for the public good. We use it for personal satisfaction, and that actually can work against the public good if we're too self-centered, if we're too isolated, because we stop interacting with people and we interact only with a screen. So I think it's a delicate balance, but I think that's an educational process about how you think about using all of the wonderful technologies in the ways of connecting with people, but with an underlying sense of how do we do that in a way that promotes the public good. If you can figure out a way to do that, to get young people to basically internalize it, that it becomes their way of thinking about how they go about doing many of the things that they do, then in fact you could look to this generation for real positive change.
Mm-hmm. And apparently on the pathway of achieving such thing, young people, they can't do it alone, so they need mentors and ethical guardrails. So what role should institutions like universities and think tanks play in supporting ethical AI development, especially in this fragile climate of public trust?
Well, if you think about almost any area, you need laws and regulations to govern social behavior. But laws and regulations only go so far. And if we look at human history, there are norms, social norms, that really govern so much of what we do, how we interact with each other. There's no law against being rude, but there's a norm against being rude. So you got to develop the norms. Those norms of civility, forbearance, which is when you lose, right? And you're gracious about that, and if it's an election, it's the other side that's been granted the right to govern. You have to respect that. So I think those norms are really fundamental. They apply, just generally across society, but very much in this particular area. We can't rely simply on governments and their laws and regulations. We have to really build within the public kind of an ethic about AI and the use of newer technologies.